All right, welcome back to my next quick toy review that I'm going to do. These are my recent Cyberverse acquisitions. You got a Warrior Class Megatron, Acid Storm and Windblade, and Ultra Class Shockwave. So, in case you didn't see my previous video, playing a bit of catch up, so I'm going to be kind of rapid fire shooting off these reviews in bulk, just get everything caught up, but at the same time, not just leave the reviews undone. All right, so let's get started with these. Warrior Acid Storm is just a mainly green redeco of the Warrior class Starscream from Cyberverse. As such, he still turns into a chunky, rather unfeasible little jet. And he turns into a halfway decent little robot mode. Still has all the same problems that Starscream did. He's got this enormous back kibble that should fold up more neatly than it does. His legs almost completely lack articulation. They don't bend at the knees or anything. He still has the same little wind-up gimmick where you turn him, spin. It's supposed to cause these to flip out, though it's really hard to see when you're going to spin. Cool little Decepticon symbols, some circuit patterns going on. He looks cool as a static figure, but again, not much in the quality department. Here's Starscream for comparison. I will give this toy props in that they actually bothered to put some sort of paint on his legs this time, instead of just solid gray. It's a green plastic with some grayish purplish thighs there. But despite that, he still comes off looking less painted than Starscream because all of these nice little color details that he should have per his character model, he's just lacking, just mostly green. So nothing amazing. It is cool that we're getting an Acid Storm. He doesn't pop up very often in toy form compared to the 3 to 6 main Seekers, but nice to have. It's a shame they don't have him in the Ultra version like Starscream where he would scale better. Next up we'll do Megatron. Megatron turns in this little tank. Very compact. Pretty weak looking overall. You can see his thighs in the front there. You can see his little mace ball and his fist just sticking off the back. So, not a great interpretation. It does have cool little weapon details here. These guns, little missile pod looking things. No real articulation. His head totally shows in the back. Here's the Ultra Class Megatron's tank mode, which you can see is much more solid looking, a little more realistic. Doesn't have as much robot kibble being, very glaring or obvious compared to that one. They come up looking very different from one another. These don't even look like the same vehicle mode. I still definitely prefer the Ultra Class as far as vehicle mode is concerned. Here's Megatron's robot mode. And it does have a decent amount of articulation for figures in this line. It does have really good shoulder articulation on this side, bending elbow. This can turn, though it really should stay straight. Hips are on ball joints, which is nice. Knees bend, so that's always good. Head doesn't move, and then this arm doesn't come out or bend at the elbow or anything. That's because of its gimmick. See this mace ball here? It's attached right now, but when you pull this lever back, pooh, shoots out. And then you can use this to kind of flail it around a little bit. So a little slide here to pull this back in. Sure goes in the hole. Overall, Megatron's a pretty decent little figure for being a Cyberverse toy. He's got rather good articulation, aside from his gimmick arm, but the gimmick's actually kind of fun for him. Just get to swing his thing around. I like it a lot more than most of the other ones I've seen so far. Here he is again with the Ultimate Megatron. I still like the aesthetic look of the Ultimate one a bit more. Just the detailing, especially on his face, are very nice compared to the Warrior class. This one's a little more of a toss-up than the tank mode. Each figure has its own strengths. The Warrior class Megatron is way too small for my tastes, but I understand small kids aren't really concerned with scale too much. He's got a lot more intricate detailing than the bigger one. The bigger one's a little softer and rounder looking, almost kind of play schoolish. I do like the Ultimate's head a lot more. The Warrior Megatron definitely wins out as far as posability is concerned. I don't like the fact that he's permanently stuck with a mace for a hand instead of having two proper hands. So here's hoping that maybe they're going to do an Ultra Class Megatron down the line that's somewhere in the middle between these two. Bigger proportions, better looking alt mode, nice head sculpt and all that, but with decent articulation. Also, this guy's fusion cannon is comically big for his body. Okay, moving on. Next up, we have Windblade in her ever-present VTOL jet mode. This mode is very simple. There's no really moving parts. The fans don't spin or anything. She doesn't really have landing gear so much as a molded wheel and then, I guess her feet. And you can really see her hand showing on the back there. It's not great. So, but she's very recognizably Windblade. In fact, she doesn't change very much from series to series, and I'll address that in a moment. Here's Windblade's robot mode. Looks very similar to past incarnations. You'll notice the head is a little wider, a little more cartoony to better reflect how she looks in the new series. She doesn't come with any kind of accessories, unlike other Windblades, but that's kind of expected with this current toy line. They don't tend to have, weapons or anything. At least ones that aren't built into them. She does have a little action feature here, a little attack. You push down on this cockpit bit, and her fans raise up, revealing some paint, some detailing underneath. And this is supposed to be like her attack where she blows enemies with her fans. And unlike most of the other warrior toys and stuff, these aren't spring-loaded. These will actually stay in like an attack position if you want them to stay that way. So kind of nice for posing and pictures and all that. Oddly enough, her head is not one solid piece with her torso. It is a separate piece and actually causes it to be a little floppy, but it's not articulated. You can't actually turn her head. It's held in place by her little collar bit there. So all it's good for is bobbing around a little bit. That's a real shame. I don't know how widespread it is, but on my copy, her hips are quite loose. They don't tend to hold weight very well, so you gotta be a little careful when posing her and balancing her. It's not terrible. She doesn't just fall right over, but it is noticeable. I mentioned how samey this toy ends up looking, and that's kind of starting to create a bit of an issue for me. It seems like with each new incarnation of Windblade we get across series, they basically just take the same toy design and dumb it down a little bit more. Now this Titans Return Windblade is a bit of an exception. She's the same character as the original Generations one. She's just done up based off a highbrows mold, so she ends up looking quite different from the others. But when I talk about like the main Windblade designs, the ones that are supposed to evoke, the way the character normally looks. You have the Generations, which while pretty fiddly, sometimes hard to pose just because of how small some of her parts are and everything. She's very intricate, very detailed, very nice. And then you have the Robots in Disguise one, which was still a decent figure and was quite good for that line. A little lower on the articulation, parts count, but not bad. And then finally get Cyberverse, which basically took the Robots in Disguise one, dumbed it down even further. Gave it even less articulation, gave it fewer parts, took her sword away. But the transformation scheme has been largely the same across the three main versions of this toy. And it's getting really boring. It feels like if you have one Windblade, you have them all. And to me, when I'm looking at a perfect Windblade, I'm still always going to go for the Thrilling 30 version. Or the Japanese equivalent Legends, if you want the slightly more accurate paint scheme. But yeah, overall, while Windblade is one of the nicer warrior class figures in Cyberverse, she just comes up being a huge disappointment because it's nothing we haven't seen before, really, from this character. And it's just the worst version of it. And finally, we have Shockwave. Now, Ultra Class Shockwave is very similar in a lot of ways to his Warrior Class figure. It's like they took the Warrior Class and just made him a little bit more complex. So overall, he comes out looking very much the same. Still turns in the Spider Tank mode, says big cannon on top, 4 little legs. Quite posable, just like the Warrior Class. All his limbs are on ball joints, so he's exceptionally posable for a Cyberverse toy. His little attack feature can be activated in this mode. There's a lever here, and you pull it back, and it activates his little cannon blast. It doesn't stay very well, but yeah, doesn't look bad. There's a little pink laser effect going on there. So, pretty decent alt mode. Might be a little lazy in the design department because it's just Shockwave on all fours basically, but whatever. Now, interestingly, if you bring Shockwave to this half transform point, you basically have a full robot mode. He has 2 proper arms. The downside is that they didn't mold a actual robot fist into this side, because this is one of his spider tank like feet. And while it does make the spider tank alt mode look a little better because you don't have a molded fist, you have something that looks like a foot, I feel like it's a really missed opportunity, because how cool would it be to be able to have a Shockwave that has 2 functioning hands? Maybe like a pre-Emperata Shockwave or something. It gives them these nice even proportions, and I do feel that they kind of chose the wrong direction. They should have just sculpted another fist in here. It would have been really cool. But when you finish transforming him, this whole arm actually tucks away inside of him, and he gets his more standard cannon arm that you're about to see. Here's Shockwave in his proper robot mode. You can see that whole other arm very neatly tucks away inside of his torso. Takes a little bit of fiddling, but you can get it to go all the way in there. And now he gets his more recognizable cannon arm. Doesn't have any elbow articulation, unfortunately, because of the gimmick. But it does look really nice. It's very big. So very powerful. And his action feature is still available in this mode. A little easier this time. You just pull that lever back. Boom. Big old Mega Man blast right there. He's very articulated, just like in his other mode. Head even turns, which is great. One thing that isn't really noticeable in his warrior class mode is this Shockwave actually has a second eye on the top there. You can see it on this toy because they actually bothered to paint it. So more noticeable this time around. It's a little different. Shockwave typically only has one eye. So kind of a interesting design choice I went with. But this is a really great looking figure, even for, a Cyberverse toy. I know a lot of people bought this one because this is going to be their G1 Shockwave. Until, Siege announced they were doing a proper G1 Shockwave. But hey, Hasbro has a fun habit of getting you to buy a toy that you think is the best and then immediately afterwards being like, surprise. But yeah, I'm not upset that I have this thing. It's probably my favorite toy out of the entire Cyberverse line so far. It's just good. It's well worth the $20 that you pay for it. He's got these very nice paint apps, which his show model has that the warrior class is lacking, sadly. So he just has a nicer presentation about him overall. Here is the warrior class toy for comparison. Again, not a bad toy by any means. It's still one of my favorites, if not my favorite warrior out of the line. Each one has pros and cons as far as screen accuracy, articulation. Ultra Shockwave sacrifices his elbow articulation, but gains head articulation. The warrior one has this extra cannon on his back because of his transformation. So, you may like that, though it does hurt his screen accuracy. His cannon arm is definitely more screen accurate and even has a little hole where a wire should plug in, though neither of them actually have that little cable bit. And honestly, you can't really go wrong with either one, depending on what you're looking for. Me personally, I would still go with the more Voyager-sized Ultra class because he would fit in better in a display or collection. And I just like him slightly more. I love how much his colors pop, how much paint detail he has, which is honestly a cut above most Cyberverse toys. But if you don't want to drop the money on the big one, you can't find the big one, Warrior class is a decent substitute. So quick final thoughts on this group of toys. Shockwave is definitely my favorite of the bunch. It just seems like they put way more effort into this character than any of the others in Cyberverse so far. Windblade is not a bad toy, though she's not a great Windblade toy. She really just is kind of boring compared to some other ones. Megatron, good alternative if you don't want the really massive Ultimate class. It's got some good articulation. I wish his head turned, but not a big deal. Acid Storm, you can really easily pass on him unless you just really want to get as many Seekers as you can. He's really not a good toy. He's very, very cheap. But anywho, that was my look at my newest Cyberverse toys. They're from different ways, different classes, but I'm just going to lump them all together. Hope you enjoyed this look at them. Definitely recommend picking up the Shockwave if you can. Windblade, maybe. Meh. These are all currently available at stores, so they shouldn't be too hard to find, especially the warrior classes. So let me know what you think of these. Let me know what you thought of the review. If you like the review, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. That always helps. If you do want to see more reviews like this or even Transformers discussions, can't hurt to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you can see whenever I put out a new video. And with all that said, I will see you all next time.